Welcome back to another session. I I would like to speak to the topic of depression from the perspective of what you've earned. In the session that I covered previously, I made reference to the law of resistance and how whatever we resist in life tends to persist. And in many ways, some of our depression, some of our struggles mentally, psychologically, are self-induced. All of human suffering is self-inflicted. Um, we have to understand that all of our suffering is also linked to ignorance. There is something we do not know, either how the laws work, how we should react to circumstances, or how we can change our fate and where we find ourselves. There is something called the law of compensation. If you look around you today, what you find is there are some people who work very, very hard. Some of the hardest working people, unfortunately, are the poorest and the lowest paid. It might seem as though there is perhaps an unfairness to how the system is set up, as though the universe is not just. The universe is just. She is just in her actions, but she is fair also in her expectations. There are laws that are designed to make life meaningful, easier, and to minimize our suffering. The universe does not come to your aid and does not try to teach you about said laws. It simply says, learn the laws, put the laws into practice, apply the laws, and I will work with you. Despite being amongst the hardest working people in the world, some of the poorest fail to learn about the laws of the universe, one of which is the law of compensation. Now, you might be thinking, what does compensation have to do with this topic of depression and anxiety? Well, it has everything to do with the topic, and I hope you would exercise some patience to see where I might be getting to at some point. Indulge me for the time being. We are paid and we are compensated, we are rewarded based on the service we provide. If you believe that you're earning lower than you should, there is a possibility on a balance of probabilities that your compensation is fair and is consistent with what you're providing. And so with the law of compensation, it tries to teach us that we all will be compensated based on a series of prerequisite conditions. One of those conditions is that there has to be a need for what you are providing in terms of a service. Your talent has to be matched with what the people want. That talent must be addressed towards a problem that exists. So the first prerequisite is that there has to be a need for what you are providing or for what you are doing. The second is actually you must be good at what you do. And you must be so good that it leads to the third, which is that the ability to replace you becomes harder. And let me take a step back. This would mean that if you are a street sweeper, the first question is there a need for you to sweep the streets? The answer is yes. How good are you in doing it? The answer could be perhaps even Michelangelo might even assume that you are one of the best, and the angels of heavens might say you are very good. So you've met the first two criteria. But if we can develop vehicles and machines that can automate the process and do the work at a cheaper pace, rate and pace, then it means you are replaceable, and therefore your compensation will be based on the basic law of economics. Now we bring it to the conversation about depression. If you suffer from anxiety or depression, if you're always fearful about the future, if you are perhaps in a state of panic and worry and concern constantly, or even intermittently, it is for one of many reasons. Embedded in that whole experience is you have been compensated based on what you have created. Something you've created in your thoughts, in your feelings, or in your actions. But You have been compensated. The law of sowing and reaping has played a part in your condition. And therefore, for you to change what you are getting, you need not worry about changing what you produce. You simply have to change who you are. And so the law of compensation requires that you change something. Otherwise, you will keep getting what you're getting. Now, inherent in that law is a truism, which is that we are either growing or we are dying. We're moving forward or we're moving backwards. And therefore, if you just stay where you are, despite being paid the same amount, we know from an economic perspective, inflation erodes the purchasing power of whatever you're paid. And that means you're moving backwards. And this simply means that there is an amount of energy and a force that has to be built into your daily experience where you are applying what I call constant and never-ending growth and improvement. So the question comes to mind, which is, are you growing every day? Are you learning every day? Are you increasing every day? Or are you stuck? Now let's assume you were stuck for a minute. Fine. You have to identify and accept, I'm stuck. But the second step is simply to say, well, I'd like to find myself in a different place. Choose your true north, your destination. And once you've chosen that destination, and if you have desire, you can tune yourself out from that frequency or vibration of limitations and lack, and you can tune up to one of abundance and prosperity. And if you stay focused, if you keep that picture in your heart, and if you work daily towards that picture, you will shift your state so much so that you will move into doing things for which you will find that you are solving problems and therefore you're being compensated, but because you are growing and improving every day, you become difficult to replace. You need to get good at solving problems. And I tend to find that people who suffer from depression, I could be wrong with regards to whether this applies to everyone, but I think I am correct in the majority. We mostly have too much time, and the idle mind and the idle hands becomes the devil's workshop. We have so much time, we're bored, that we start to think about the things that we lack in our lives and the gaps and the voids we have and the blessings that other people you might perceive that they have. If we focus our time on solving problems, finding things around us and around the world that need to be fixed, we will become irreplaceable because we will get good at being servants, being a person who serves. And how good you are will always depend on a few things. Firstly, how well you are investing back in yourself. I am stunned, to be very frank, at how many people do not take personal development seriously. We wake up every morning, we go to work, for some of us, we go to school, and we spend the entirety of our entire day helping other people improve and increase their bottom lines, their businesses. But we do very little personal development and personal growth. Very few of us have a personal growth plan. As a matter of fact, as you listen to this, here is a question for you. What is your personal growth plan? And if you have one, can you articulate that plan within a few sentences to me in such a way that I can take what you have said and I can go out and I can explain your growth plan to another person in a manner that it could understand exactly what you meant? And my experience has been very few have a personal growth plan. Most people who are depressed are stuck. Like Lot's wife, they keep looking backwards. If you have a growth plan, you're always looking forward. Despite the setbacks, you're giving yourself permission to grow, not to stay fixed. You're focused not just on yourself, but you're focused on the future and all the people you might be able to help, solve problems for, or be a blessing in their lives. And so the law of compensation with regards to depression is always working. If you have depression, I hate to say this, It means you've earned it. You've earned it by virtue of how you have used your thoughts, how you have used your feelings, and the actions you have taken. If you don't like what you're getting, then you have to change what you were given. Life boomerangs. What you see in the mirror is what is reflected back. And if what is reflected back as you look at the mirror is depression and anxiety and worry and uncertainty, it means that's what you're giving out. That is the vibration, the energy that you're putting out into the environment and into the universe. You don't change the reflection on the mirror by replacing the mirror. You change the reflection by fixing the person who stands in front of the mirror. And so you can, through the law of compensation, by simply saying, I feel depressed, I'm anxious, I'm worryful, I'm doubtful, but I'm going to take the focus away from me. I'm going to look around and find a garden that needs weeding. I'm going to look around and find problems that need solving. I'm going to look for opportunities that exist. The acres of diamonds are around me. And when I find one of them, I'm going to give my heart to solving that problem and doing it well and doing it in such a manner that other people recognize the good that I am doing, but also doing it in a manner that I'll be difficult to replace. And in that process, what I am doing is that I'm growing. I'm developing new skills. I'm developing a new attitude. I'm changing my thought process. I'm focused less on myself. It's not just about I don't feel good. It's not about me. Solipsism. I'm now focused on out there. The greatest amongst you has to be the servant. Your depression could be by choice. The depression could also be because you're not doing what is within your capability to do. You can change that by firstly understanding the law of compensation. If you want to change what you are getting, you have to change what you are given. I hope today's session has been useful.